Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam. Yang di belakang tolong merapat dong ke depan dong. Biar seru, biar seru. Lagi dong. Nah, gitu kan enak. Oke, selamat datang di kampus Activate. Terima kasih sudah meluangkan waktu, udah hujan-hujanan. Kita masih berharap ada beberapa teman-teman lagi yang bisa join beberapa menit ke depan. Dan perkenalkan, nama saya Riza dari Activate. Hai. Activate adalah coding bootcamp yang bisa menyulap kalian-kalian jadi full stack developer dalam 12 minggu saja. Itu hasilnya ada beberapa. Nanti bisa langsung nanya-nanya aja gimana kehidupan di Activate. Oke, hari ini kita akan buka meetup untuk REACT.ID. Jadi REACT.ID adalah meetup yang yang akan membahas teknologi seputar React, Redux, dan teknologi terkait lainnya. Kita udah mulai dari tahun lalu sebenarnya, dan udah ada beberapa meetup yang kita jalanin, cuman belum reguler, dan mudah-mudahan di tahun 2017 ini kita bisa kickstart di bulan Maret dan akan ada meetup secara reguler setiap bulannya. Oke, dan biar waktunya nggak tambah panjang, hari ini akan ada tiga speaker. Main speakernya adalah Simon dari KodeFox. Simon akan membahas tentang Expo atau Exponent untuk framework untuk React Native. Kemudian ada Bagus Juang yang adalah alumni dari Activate juga yang sekarang udah join ke KodeFox sebagai software developer. Dan nanti saya juga akan ngomong tentang sedikit tentang styling di React. Oke, tanpa berpanjang-panjang lagi, mari kita sambut Simon.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming. So I want to talk to you today about React Native. Specifically, we're going to use something called Expo. And I'll talk for a little while about why that is, why it's cool, why Expo is awesome. I'll try to convince you, and then we will do some live coding, and we'll kind of see how it works. So I'm Simon. I'm a sort of JavaScript programmer of many years, and a React enthusiast. I really like React. We do a lot of React. I run a dev team called KodeFox, not far from here, and we have a bunch of engineers. We do a lot of React Native. And you can find me on Twitter, @SSTUR_. So Expo, previously called Exponent. Has anyone heard of this? Anybody know? It's a little bit new, but it builds on some really cool technology. It's open source. It basically enables you to build high-quality native iOS and Android apps using React Native and deploy those apps effortlessly. So it's really cool. It's free, it's open source, and it's built on Facebook's React Native. So writing an Expo app is like writing a React Native app. It's basically the same, except you never need to open Android Studio or Xcode, and you don't need a Mac, right? I mean, you don't need a Mac anyway to develop for Android, but for iOS, normally you need Xcode and a Mac and a bunch of Apple stuff. So this kind of takes a lot of that hassle out of the process. And specifically deployment, right? Deployment is a breeze. Like just getting the app onto people's phones this makes it really easy. So, but let's back up. Let's start with what is React Native, right? Because if Expo is a way to build React Native apps easily, what is React Native? So has anybody here used React Native or any kind of React? Okay. Cool, awesome. So React is a framework for web, right? And React Native is basically the same ideas behind React, but for mobile phones, right? For building real native apps. And so it's similar to React Web, but without the browser, without the document object model. There's no HTML, there's no CSS, no browser, and it's easy to build cross-platform. So like React Native isn't designed with the goal in mind of being like perfectly cross-platform, but it does make it a whole lot easier to build cross-platform apps with React Native. Performance is really good, especially compared to like typical cross-platform frameworks like PhoneGap and Cordova and Ionic, because all of those are web view based, right? And so, so really high performance. The developer experience is incredible. So like if you've built using React Native, once you get used to it, once you understand the kind of React way of describing your views, it's really easy to sort of like just write your code and just refresh your app. So it gives you the developer experience that's a lot like web. And so it's pretty easy to get started with. So if you look at like this is React for web, right? You have divs, and generally you have spans and form elements and input elements. And this is React for React Native, right, for mobile. So instead of a div, you have something like a view. Instead of a span, you might have something like a text and text input and a bunch of other elements. But if this looks a little bit familiar to you, you know, if you've seen this on web, then React Native will be really easy to get started with. And you know, we could do a whole presentation on why React Native is awesome. But in this case, I'm going to kind of skip over a lot of those details, and we're just going to talk about Expo. So what Expo is a set of tools around React Native for creating projects, for easy access to native features, right? Maps, push notifications, location information, audio, video, and then maybe the coolest part is like how to build the app and get it onto the device. So that's kind of briefly what Expo gives us. So there's kind of a few steps here, like how to Expo, but it's not too hard. So step one, you install their XDE on your computer. It's cross-platform, Windows, Mac, Linux, and then you say create new project. Then you open your favorite editor and you write some code, right? Just React Native code, which if you've seen React looks fairly familiar. You save your code, and then you send a link to any device, right? So you create a project, you write some code, you send a link, and this is where the magic happens, right? Because normally you don't just, I mean, if you're a web developer, you send a link, right? But normally if you're a native developer, it's not that easy, right? You have to go through a lot of build, a lot of compiling. If you're in the Apple world, you have to go through like test flight and provision devices to allow them to install something that's not on the App Store, right? But in this case, when they get the link, they click the link and it says, would you like to open an Expo? And they say yes, and it fires open their Expo app and loads the app you built within the Expo runner or the Expo client. And so if they don't have Expo, they have to get it on the Google Play or the App Store. So the link you send to your users will tell them how to get it. But if they already have it, they just click open. So the idea is that we can run a native app effortlessly, like as easy as loading a web page. But it's still a native app. It's not a web view. Let's try it. Let's try it a little bit. So what I've done is, so we'll do two sort of live demos. So the first one, I've already created this project. So I called this Exponent REACT.ID. And so I've already created the project. So I'm just going to click the project, and then we'll run it on the phone to kind of give you an idea of how this works. So I'm running this in development mode. So I get this link, and so this is kind of a randomly generated subdomain. We get this long link with a port number, and it handles not only creating the link but figuring out how to get the app from my development machine to my phone. So let's open Reflector, and I will try to cast this iPhone onto the computer so you can see what we're doing. Okay, so we got our iPhone onto the computer. And so what I want to do here is I want to, maybe we'll just change some code just so that you can see, that we're loading a live app, right? So here I just changed loading messages from server. We call it getting data from server, right? I save my changes. I go back over here. I say, let's send this link to this email address. And I'll press send link. And then if you look on the phone here, the link should come through to the email relatively soon. We'll kind of wait for this. There it is. Okay. So, so we'll open this up and we'll click the link in the email, right? And so, so it's going to take me, it's going to open my Exponent app. It's going to load the app that we just created. And then if it does our job right, at the top I should say like getting data from server. Getting data from server. It's loading. So what we built for the demo here is a chat app. So if any of you has Exponent on your phone, you can load a URL, and I made an easy sort of redirect URL for you. So if you go to codefox.com/chat demo. So if you go to that URL from your phone, it will take you to a landing page where you can either install Exponent, or if you already have Exponent, you can just press run this app. And then, does anybody need to see this for another moment longer? Codefox with a K.com/chat demo. And so, the demo app that I built, and I'll show you the code for this. We built this morning. It's pretty simple. It just asks you for your name. So here I'll say my name is Simon. And then it asks me for a message. And we'll just say, hi, ladies and dudes. And we'll press send. And so this is using a Firebase backend. So did anybody see the message that I sent on your phone? Anybody? Still loading? Let's have a quick look at the code. It's pretty standard React Native code. And then maybe we'll change a piece of code. So if we look at the code here, we see that what we've got here is we import a bunch of UI elements from React Native. Text view, scroll view, text input, and button. They're all, pretty easy to understand kind of what those components do, right? We keep a little bit of information in our state. The is loaded is a yes or no, some messages. We listen, we add a listener for when messages change. And then we have a render function. So if it's not loaded, we show a message. Otherwise, we're going to show our UI, right? Our view, our text input, 2 text inputs, a button, and then here's our scroll view where we map over the messages. So maybe a good way to get a feel for how easy it is to build in React Native is if we just create a new project. Cool. So we can say like, hi, deep. Awesome. Cool. So let's sort of close this project here. And so in my phone, what I'll do to close out of this app, I'll use my 2-finger press, and then it will ask me if I want to if I want to reload the app or go back to Expo Home. So I'll go back to Expo Home. And so Expo Home is where you can run all of the apps either by URL or by browsing through on the Explore tab, right? And so we can search for an app like demo, and it'll show public apps that are built by other people in React Native that can be run on our on Expo. And we can also run demo apps, like this is the React Native component list. So this demo app just demos all of the components that are available in React Native, right? So we've got things like an action sheet, which is like an iOS style thing. We've got loaders, spinners. We've got things like for choosing dates. We've got, we can open the camera, right? So like opening the camera is something that you can't typically do easily with web. Choosing from photos, right? We got sliders and hide and show things and switches. And so, and then we have some Exponent, special Exponent components that normally is not included with React Native. And so these are things like a barcode scanner, right? Which I do not have a QR code available, so I'm going to reload because I couldn't find the back button for that. Anyway, so to give the idea of how easy it is to get started doing mobile development with Expo, let's just create a new project. So we'll just create a new project here, and we'll call this, let's call this Hello Activate, like that, right? So we'll just create a new project. It's got to download a few files. It's got to extract them. But it's pretty fast because we've done this before. So it's already cached a copy of most of this. And so then it starts our React Native packager. And so on the left-hand side is all the information about our sort of packager that bundles our JavaScript. On the right side is the logs from the device itself. And then it assigned us a new random URL. So let's open that same project in our code editor. So we'll just say Atom, and then we'll say projects, and what do we call it? Hello Activate. Cool. So we'll just open that in Atom, and you can see that we have a few files. So if you've ever done React Native before, React Native has a lot more files in this. It has an iOS directory and an Android directory and a bunch of native files and build tools and Gradle. And so this basically just has a JavaScript file called main and a few config files. So the only thing we care about for this demo is main.js. And so here's where we can write our React style code and get it onto the device. So here we'll just say, hello Activate. I will, actually before I save this file, I'm going to run it first. So what I'll do is I'll send a link to the same device. And so we'll kind of wait for this device to get an email with that link. We'll give that a moment. Or if we get impatient, we'll just kind of go check in the mail. There it is. Cool. So this is the new app that we just created. We'll click the link. It's going to take a second. It will load up the empty project. So the empty project will always just be a text in the middle of the screen that says something like edit main.js. So we'll let that load for a second. And you can see while that was loading over in our packager, it said that it was building main.js and transforming modules. And so now we have this this one line of text. So this is an empty app. So going back to our code, right, we changed that line to read hello Activate. So what I'll do is I'll press Command S to save it. And so what you'll notice is it automatically started refreshing the phone whenever we saved our changes. And so it takes a little while to refresh, but when it refreshes, it should automatically have hello Activate. So that is, yeah, so that's the fundamentals of getting started with Exponent. Should we add one more? Should we add a button to this or something, or do you want to move on? Okay. We should probably add a K and save it. Okay. And so it will actually load faster if I connect these two devices on the same Wi-Fi, and it doesn't have to go out through the internet. But for this demo, I wanted it to be like a public link. Let's add a button. Let's add a simple button and some state. So let's add what we could do is we could add a counter. And so here we'll just add a button, and the button will have a title that says increase count. And whenever we press the button, so we'll add an on press. So whenever we press the button, we're going to set the state, right? So I guess we should create some state. And so if you're used to React, you can just set the state and say count is 0. So our initial count is 0. And then here we'll say let state equals this.count.state, right? And then whenever we press the button, we'll just increase the count by 1. So we do that by saying this.set state, and we'll say count is count plus 1. The only last thing we need to do is we need to display the count. So we'll just put it right here. Okay, maybe I should do count and state.count. That would be better, I think. Cool. So if I save that, then our application refreshes. And if we did everything right, we should just have a button that increases the count whenever we press it. Okay, I know what we did wrong. We have to import our button up here. But I've saved it, so it's automatically reloading. Did I do anything else wrong? Did anybody notice any other? Okay, cool. So we just press this button here, which looks like a link called increase count, and it just increases the count. So that's the really quick run through of just kind of building a native app using Exponent. Does everybody kind of get the idea there? Cool. So, so the Exponent client, right? The client is the app that you install from the App Store that runs your code. It's kind of like a browser, right? It's like a browser specifically for apps built with Exponent, Expo. And so the Expo sort of SDK gives you a bunch of features that is not normally available in React Native, right? Audio, video, push notifications, which is a big one, right? Push notifications are really hard to get right in apps, especially across 2 different platforms. So they have a combination of features that helps you with that. They have a server-side piece. They have a helper library for your client app. QR code, right? Like a QR code reader. Just kind of basics like an image picker. And so all of these things are kind of built in. And what about publishing your app? So you don't want to get your users to download this Exponent thing and click on this link every time they want to run your app, right? Eventually, you want to put it on the App Store. And so there is several options. So option number 1 is just what we did today, which is we just publish it on the Exponent sort of platform, which is where they have to use Exponent to run your app. The other option is that we can build a standalone app that is ready to submit to the App Store with your icon and your dev account hooked up to it and everything. So in order to use the Exponent tools to do it, you need to trust Exponent and give them your signing key for Android, or for iOS, you need to give them your developer login. And then what they will do is it will send off your JavaScript to the Exponent servers. They will do all the complicated Xcode, Android Studio compilation and send you back an APK or an IPA ready to submit to the App Store. And you don't even have to install Xcode. The last option is that if you just decide you don't want to deal with Exponent anymore and you want a regular React Native app, you can just detach it. You just run exp detach, and it will give you a regular React Native app. And then you can just like add native code, change it however you like it, and submit it through your own, compile it yourself. And bonus, if you go through the Exponent way of doing things, you can push over-the-air updates to your published app without any big effort. So, when to use Expo, or Exponent, as it was previously called. So at KodeFox, we use it for easily sending clients a demo of our app during development, right? So we don't use it to publish to the App Store. I mean, we could, but generally it's just an easy way to send someone a link instead of like compiling a 15 meg APK and like emailing it to them. We just send them a link and they can run it. And they can just refresh the app whenever we publish a new version. It's especially helpful during the early or the middle phase of development, right? At the end, you're probably doing a lot of custom stuff and it may not work as well. But in the beginning, it's a really good way to show a demo. Rapid prototyping is pretty helpful. If you just want to say, show you've got a cool startup idea, you need to get it into an app to show an investor, to show a potential investor, and you can build something pretty simple in a short amount of time. And so like learning or teaching, particularly like what we do when we're training, is that we don't want to focus on setting up Xcode and compilation and building. We just want to focus on writing React Native. And so using something like this helps us just kind of put the focus where we need to and not spend time configuring Android Studio and SDKs. And some people use it throughout the entire development process, all the way to the App Store. But when not to use Exponent, when not to use Expo. So if you need native packages that aren't provided, right? So the list of provided stuff that we talked about before, like this list here, and there's more. But if you need features that are not on the list that's provided by Expo, then you probably want to use React Native, like the normal React Native, and build some kind of native plugin for it, or find one that somebody has already built. So if you need to write custom native code, if you need features that are not in the SDK, then you probably can't use Exponent. So that's what we have for today. Thank you very much.
Ada.
Maybe a young framework, so maybe it's not as mature or you don't trust it as much as a framework that's been around for longer. You have to trust them with your signing key and with your developer login because they are building it on your behalf, so you have to trust them to do that. That's all I can think of really. I'm sure there's more.
Ada lagi? Ayo. Kita ada itu ya, ada oleh-oleh buat yang mau nanya. Ya, ada apa? Ada besek nanti. Jadi silakan kalau ada yang mau nanya. Yang online ada yang nanya nggak di online? 1 menit, oke. Yang online kalau mau tanya bisa langsung ke Slack atau ke YouTube channel kita ya. Silakan aja. Kalau nggak ada, mungkin ada lagi, terakhir, ayo. Kalau nggak ada, thank you Simon. Please give. Thank you.